My brother offered to photograph my wedding as his gift. I thought it was sweet until I saw the pictures. He'd edited every photo to make me look grotesque, then posted them online to humiliate me. He forgot one thing. My job is to manage online reputations, and I was about to ruin his career forever. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The honeymoon was over. Not just literally, Ethan and I had returned from 2 blissful weeks in Italy, but emotionally. I was sitting on our new sofa, wrapped in a plush blanket, shivering despite the heating being on. The post-wedding glow had been replaced by a deep, hollow exhaustion. I'd been fighting a nasty flu for 3 days, the kind that makes your bones ache and your skin feel too tight. Ethan was in the kitchen, making me another cup of lemon and ginger tea, his quiet humming the only sound in the apartment. My phone, resting on my lap, buzzed with a notification. It was an email from my cousin, titled, Daphne, you need to see this. My fingers felt thick and clumsy as I opened it. The email was short. I don't know what's going on with Marcus, but he just posted this. I am so sorry. A link was included. I clicked it. My stomach plummeted. It led to my brother's professional photography blog. The landing page was a stunning black-and-white shot of Ethan and his groomsmen, all laughing, looking like models in a magazine. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the main post. The title was Capturing All Kinds of Beauty, the wedding of Daphne and Ethan. I scrolled down. The first picture was of me, or rather, a cruel caricature of me. My skin, which had been clear and bright on my wedding day, was now a mottled, sickly yellow. He digitally exaggerated every tiny pore, added blemishes that weren't there, and subtly warped the shape of my eyes to make them look uneven and close-set. He'd even edited my teeth, giving them a faint, grayish tint. I felt the blood drain from my face. Ethan, I whispered. He appeared in the doorway, a steaming mug in his hand. Here you go, honey. Still feeling? He saw my expression, and his smile vanished. He put the mug down and was by my side in an instant. Daphne, what is it? You're as white as a sheet. I couldn't speak. I just held up the phone. He took it, his brow furrowed in confusion. I watched his face as he scrolled. I saw the exact moment his confusion curdled into disbelief, and then into a cold, quiet rage I had never seen in him before. What is this? He said, his voice dangerously low. I scrolled with him. Every single photo of me was the same. In the father-daughter dance, my dad looked distinguished. I looked jaundiced and warped, my arms digitally thickened to look strange and lumpy. In the group shots, every bridesmaid was luminous. I was a grotesque focal point, my smile twisted into a grimace. He had even photoshopped Stephanie, his new girlfriend, to look absolutely perfect, practically glowing, standing next to a distorted version of me. The blog post itself was worse. Marcus had written captions. Under a particularly awful close-up of me, he'd written, "The challenge of a wedding photographer is to find the beauty in every subject, no matter how difficult. A true test of skill." Under a photo of him and Stephanie, he'd written, "So grateful to have my beautiful muse, Stephanie, by my side for this challenging family event." He hadn't just made me look bad. He had used his professional platform to publicly, systematically humiliate me. The comments section was already filling up. Some were from strangers, praising his honesty and skill in difficult lighting. Others were from distant relatives, confused. "Is Daphne okay? She looks unwell." And then, the one that broke me. A comment from someone I knew from college. "Wow, Daphne, marriage hasn't been kind, has it?" A raw, choking sob escaped my throat. I felt dizzy, the flu and the shock warring for control. Ethan wrapped his arms around me, his body rigid with fury. "He's not getting away with this," Ethan growled, his hand shaking as he scrolled through the digital monstrosities. I just buried my face in his chest, the tears hot and fast. I was sick, I was vulnerable, and my own brother had just broadcast my humiliation to the world. The betrayal was worse than the flu itself. The next 24 hours were a blur of sickness and shame. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those distorted images of myself, my smile warped into something ugly. I felt disgusting, exposed. My wedding day, which had been so full of joy and light, now felt like a fraud, a setup for a public shaming. Ethan was my rock. He fielded the dozens of calls and texts from confused, outraged friends and family. He was a wall of protective anger, his voice curt and final. Daphne is unwell and isn't speaking to anyone right now. Yes, we've seen the post. No, we have no explanation for Marcus's disgusting behavior. We are handling it. He unplugged our home internet. He took my phone and put it in a drawer. You don't need to see this, he said firmly. You need to rest. We'll deal with Marcus when you're strong again. But I couldn't rest. The fever had broken, but the emotional chill remained. On the third day, my phone, now back in my possession, rang. The screen flashed, Marcus. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ethan saw my face and took the phone from my hand, his thumb hovering over the decline button. No, I said, my voice hoarse. Put it on speaker. I want to hear this. He nodded, his eyes dark. He answered and set the phone on the coffee table. Daphne, you're finally picking up, Marcus's voice boomed, entirely too cheerful. There was no apology, no concern. I've been calling. Did you see the blog? It's getting incredible traffic. My engagement is through the roof. I was speechless. I looked at Ethan, who seemed to be vibrating with suppressed rage. What did you do, Marcus? Ethan's voice was like ice. There was a pause. What do you mean? I did my job. I gave you a set of artistic, realistic photos. A gift, remember? You should see the DMs I'm getting. A lot of people are praising my brave and unflinching style. It's very avant-garde. Avant-garde? I finally found my voice, though it cracked. You made me look like a monster, Marcus. You added blemishes, you warped my face. Why? Why would you do that? I heard him sigh, a long, put-upon sound that I'd known my whole life. It was the sound that always came before he dismissed my feelings. Daph, don't be so sensitive. It's art. It's realism. I'm sorry you don't like my style, but as the artist, I have to be true to my vision. I was capturing the raw reality of the day. The raw reality? Ethan cut in. Everyone else looks like a supermodel, especially your girlfriend. The only raw reality you captured was your own cruelty. Look, I can't help it if Stephanie is just naturally photogenic, Marcus snapped, his cheerfulness finally slipping. I'm a professional, Ethan. This is how I see things. I can't Photoshop reality just because my sister is insecure. Insecure? The word hit me like a slap. He had twisted his malice into my weakness. You posted them online, Marcus, I whispered, the tears returning. For everyone to see, my colleagues, my friends. It's my portfolio, he said, his voice rising in irritation. It's how I get business. This is good for my brand. You should be happy for my success. Now, I have to go. Stephanie and I are scouting a high-end venue. I'll send you the full gallery link when I have time. Maybe you'll find a few you like in there. The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone. The man who had held my hand when I broke my arm, the brother I'd adored, was gone. In his place was a stranger, one who would humiliate me for engagement. Ethan was pacing, muttering under his breath. I'm going to call a lawyer. I'm going to sue him for defamation, slander. I shook my head, a slow, cold clarity cutting through the fever fog. The sickness was receding, and in its place something else was hardening. No, I said, don't call a lawyer, not yet. Ethan stopped pacing. Daphne, we can't let him. He called it his brand, didn't he? I said, my voice quiet. I looked up at Ethan, and for the first time in days, I felt a spark. He said this is good for his brand. He thinks he's an artist, a professional. I picked up my laptop and opened it. My fingers, no longer clumsy, flew over the keys. What are you doing? Ethan asked. My job, I replied. I'm a senior brand strategist, Ethan. I manage online reputations for multi-million-dollar companies. I handle digital crises. Marcus thinks his brand is his portfolio. He's wrong. I kept typing, my mind racing. Marcus wasn't just a cruel brother, he was a business, and he had just made a very, very public mistake. He had forgotten one crucial thing. He had forgotten what I do for a living. Growing up, Marcus had always been the golden child. He was 3 years older, charming and talented. Our parents had poured resources into his passion for photography, buying him his first expensive camera when he was 16, paying for workshops, and bragging to everyone about their artist son. I was the practical one, quiet, studious, and overlooked. I'd worked part-time jobs to pay for my own textbooks, got a scholarship, and clawed my way up the corporate ladder in a field our parents barely understood. "She does something with computers," my mom would say vaguely. I had always been Marcus's biggest cheerleader. I helped him build his first website. I wrote the copy for his brochures. When he was struggling to get clients, I used my meager savings to hire him for a branding shoot for my first ever startup job, a shoot I didn't need, just so he could have a corporate client in his portfolio. I celebrated his successes harder than my own, desperate for his approval, for that bright, charming smile to be aimed at me with genuine pride. When he'd offered to photograph my wedding, I'd wept with gratitude. "It's my gift to you and Ethan, Daff," he'd said, hugging me tightly. "Only the best for my little sister." It felt like the culmination of all those years, a sign that he finally saw me, that he was proud of me. That illusion was now shattered. This betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was calculated. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled my bones, that it wasn't his idea alone. The real antagonist, the influence, was Stephanie. Marcus had met Stephanie about 6 months ago. She owned a small, overpriced boutique that seemed to be perpetually empty. She called herself a stylist and a brand consultant, but from what I could tell, her main occupation was spending her family's money and cultivating an air of bored superiority. She was beautiful, I couldn't deny that, but in a sharp, cold way. From the moment she met me, she'd treated me with a bizarre, simmering disdain. I remembered our first meeting clearly. Marcus had brought her to a Sunday brunch. I'd worn a simple sundress. Stephanie had looked me up and down, her lip curling slightly, and said, "Oh, Marcus, your sister is so quaint. It's brave to be that casual." Throughout my wedding planning, she'd been a constant, negative presence. When I showed her my dress, she'd sighed and said, "That silhouette is very traditional. Are you sure you can pull it off?" Dee insisted on being in the bridal party suite as we got ready, just to help, but had spent the entire time taking pouty selfies and criticizing the makeup artist. And now, looking at the blog post again, I saw her influence everywhere. The avant-garde and raw reality language, that was pure Stephanie. It was her brand of pretentious nonsense. The photos of her were placed strategically throughout the post, making it look less like my wedding album and more like her personal fashion shoot. In one, she was posed dramatically by a window, her back to the main reception, with a caption, "Finding artistry in the mundane." She was jealous. She was petty. She saw me, happy and successful in my own right, marrying a wonderful man like Ethan, and she couldn't stand it. She had seen my wedding as a platform to launch her own brand and, in the process, diminish me. Marcus, blinded by her and high on his own arrogance, had been her willing instrument. "Daphne," Ethan's voice pulled me from my thoughts. He was sitting opposite me, a legal pad in his hand. "I've been doing some research. A cease and desist letter won't be enough. We need to." I held up my hand. "We're not going to use a lawyer. We are going to use a strategist, me." I turned my laptop screen toward him. Marcus's entire business relies on his online reputation. His blog, his social media, and most importantly, the major vendor platforms. The Knot, Wedding Wire, Zola, that's where he gets 90% of his clients. He's a preferred vendor on 2 of them. That status is everything. "Okay, so we report him?" Ethan asked. "No," I said. "We don't just report him, we deplatform him. A simple complaint will get lost in their customer service queue. We need to build an ironclad, public case that they cannot ignore." We need to make Marcus a PR liability so toxic that they drop him to protect their own brand. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Project Payback. First, I said, we need the truth. We need the real photos. I picked up my phone and sent a mass text to my entire bridal party and several close family members. Hi everyone. As you've seen, Marcus's photos are not representative of the day. I'm putting together a private, real album. Please send me every single photo and video you took on your phones. The good, the bad, the blurry. Send me everything. Within an hour, my inbox was flooding. Hundreds of photos. Me laughing with my bridesmaids, my skin glowing. Me and Ethan sharing a stolen kiss, our eyes shining. Me and my dad, tears in our eyes as we danced. The evidence was clear. Marcus hadn't captured raw reality. He had manufactured an ugly lie. Okay, I said to Ethan, my voice steady. Now we gather the rest of the evidence. I took a high-resolution screenshot of every single edited photo on Marcus's blog. I screenshotted every malicious caption, every humiliating comment. I saved the HTML of the entire page. He thinks this is his art, I murmured, dragging the last screenshot into the folder. He's about to learn that my computer job is an art too. It's the art of digital warfare. The shift from victim to strategist was immediate and total. The fog of my illness and the sting of betrayal were replaced by the cold, sharp focus I normally reserved for a client in crisis. My brother had started a fire online. I was about to control the narrative. My first step was to create a new, professional-looking blog on a neutral platform. I bought a domain name, https://www.google.com/search, q equals the truth about the shoot, com. This is where we'll host the evidence, I explained to Ethan, who is now my dedicated research assistant. We can't just post angrily on Facebook. This has to be calm, methodical, and devastatingly professional. It has to look like a legal filing, not a family spat. For 2 days, we worked. I set up the site with a clean, minimalist design. The centerpiece was a compare and contrast gallery. On the left, I uploaded the beautiful, candid photos from my guests' phones. On the right, I placed Marcus's maliciously edited, professional shots of the same moments. The side-by-side comparison was damning. Guest photo, me smiling at Ethan, natural happy. Marcus's photo, the same moment. My skin was yellow, my eyes uneven, my smile twisted. Guest photo, me dancing with my father. Marcus's photo. My arms were digitally bloated, my dress warped to look ill-fitting. Guest photo, me Ethan and our bridal party laughing. Marcus's photo, everyone else was perfect. I was the single, grotesque element. Beneath the gallery, I wrote a narrative. I didn't use emotional language. I used the language of a brand audit. An analysis of professional misconduct, the title read. I detailed the agreement. The photographer, Marcus last name, offered his professional services as a wedding gift. I detailed the breach of contract, even a verbal one. The delivered product was found to be intentionally and maliciously altered to misrepresent the subject, the photographer's sister, in a grotesque and humiliating manner. I embedded the screenshots of his blog, his captions, and the public comments. I highlighted his own words, true to my vision, raw reality, and challenging subject. Then came the masterstroke. Marcus isn't just a bad photographer, I told Ethan. He's a bad businessman, and if he's willing to do this to his own sister, what is he doing to his paying clients? This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting others. I spent the next day digging. I put my SEO, search engine optimization, skills to work, not to promote, but to find. I searched for hidden reviews, for forum posts, for any flicker of discontent linked to his business. At first, there was nothing. His public profiles were gleaming 5-star reviews. He's curating, I muttered. He's deleting negative feedback. So I dug deeper. I used advanced search queries to find cached versions of review pages, and I found one. A post on a local wedding forum from 6 months ago, right when he started dating Stephanie. The post was from a frantic bride. "Help, Marcus' last name, photography is holding my photos hostage." I clicked. The story was eerily familiar. The bride explained that Marcus had been wonderful until the wedding day. Then, his new girlfriend, whom she didn't name but described as a sharp-looking woman in all black, had been present, directing him and making snide comments about the bride's dress. The bride's sneak peek was delayed for weeks. When she finally got it, the photos were off. Not grotesquely edited like mine, but flat, poorly lit, and missing key moments. When she complained, Marcus had sent her a nasty email, stating that his artistic integrity was final. He then demanded an additional $2,000 editing fee to fix the photos to her basic standards. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just cruelty, it was a pattern, it was extortion. I contacted the bride. It took some convincing, but once I shared my story, she opened up. She sent me the emails. The language Marcus used was identical to the things he'd said to me. "My vision, my brand, you don't understand art." "He and his girlfriend bullied me into paying," she wrote. "We were so desperate. I never got the original photos, just the fixed ones, and they were still terrible. We had to hire another photographer to do a reshoot." I screenshotted everything. The emails, her forum post. I added it to my website under a new section. A pattern of unethical behavior, case study 1. Now I had the weapon, but I wasn't just going to fire it. I was going to aim it at the heart of his career. I drafted a new email, this one addressed to the corporate offices of the Knot and Wedding Wire. The subject: urgent, formal ethics complaint and PR liability, notice Marcus last name, photography. "To the head of vendor standards," I began. "I am a senior brand strategist writing to you today about a preferred vendor on your platform who is engaging in malicious and fraudulent business practices that expose your brand to significant liability." I attached the link to my evidence website. "This is not just a family dispute," I told Ethan, my finger hovering over the send button. "This is a formal notification that their platform is actively promoting a predator. They'll have to act. It's not about my feelings anymore. It's about their bottom line." I hit send. The website was live, the emails were sent, the trap was set. Now we waited. It didn't take long. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was trembling with a mix of confusion and anger. "Daphne, what on earth have you done? Your brother is beside himself. He called me, sobbing. He said you're trying to ruin him, something about a website." I had preemptively blocked Marcus on all platforms, but I knew he'd find a way to me. I just didn't expect him to hide behind our mother. "Mom," I said, my voice calm and even, "have you seen his blog post?" He said it was art, Daphne," she stammered. "He said you were being overly sensitive, and now you've done this horrible thing." "Mom, I am going to send you a link to a different website. I want you to look at it. Look at the side-by-side photos. Look at the emails from the other bride he extorted. Then you can tell me if I'm being sensitive." I sent her the link. While she was occupied, Ethan got an alert. It was Marcus trying to email him from a new address. "Ethan, my man," the email read. "I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Daphne is having some kind of episode. She's hysterical. That website she made is full of lies. You need to get her under control. Tell her to take it down now. It's slander, I'll sue." Ethan and I just looked at each other. The poorly executed threat was pathetic. "Slander?" Ethan murmured. "It's only slander if it's untrue, Marcus, and she has the receipts." My phone rang again. It was Mom. She was no longer confused. She was crying. "Oh, Daphne," she whispered. That girl, that Stephanie. She was with him, wasn't she? This is her, that other poor bride. Oh, Marcus, what has he done?" "He did this, Mom, not just Stephanie," I said gently but firmly. "He's a grown man. He made his choice." The real confrontation came that evening. We heard a pounding on our apartment door. Not a knock, a full-fisted, frantic pounding. Ethan and I looked at each other. He nodded and went to the door. I heard his voice, low and hard. "You are not welcome here, Marcus." "Get out of my way, Ethan. I need to talk to my sister." "You're not coming in, not after what you did." Then a high, sharp voice cut through. "He has a right to speak to his family, you Neanderthal. Move." "Stephanie." I stood up and walked to the door. Ethan was blocking the hallway, his arm braced Aga. In's the doorframe. Marcus was standing behind him, his face blotchy and red, looking less like an artist and more like a petulant child. Beside him was Stephanie, dressed in a severe black outfit, her arms crossed, her face a mask of contempt. "Daphne, finally," Marcus yelled, trying to push past Ethan. "You need to take that website down. Now, you have no idea what you're doing. You're ruining me." "Am I?" I asked, my voice echoing slightly in the hallway. I didn't raise it. I didn't have to. "Yes, I got an email from the Knot. They're suspending my account pending an investigation. That's my main source of clients. You did this." "No, Marcus," I said, stepping forward. Ethan stayed by my side. "You did this when you decided to use my face for your little avant-garde project. You did this when you took that other bride's money. I just organized the data." "Data?" Stephanie scoffed, stepping forward. "You call that data? It's a pathetic, childish tantrum. You were always jealous of Marcus's talent. You're a boring little number cruncher, and you couldn't stand that he's a true artist. You're just lashing out because you're insecure about how you looked on your wedding day." Her words, which would have shattered me a week ago, now felt weightless. They were just predictable. "Insecure," I replied, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Is this insecure?" I'd been waiting for this. I opened my email and showed them the first message I'd received that morning. It wasn't from the Knot. It was from a very prominent, very exclusive wedding blog, one that Marcus had been trying to get featured on for years. What is that?" Marcus asked, squinting. "It's an email from the editor of Bridal Couture magazine," I said. "I sent them my website last night. They're very interested in my story. They're particularly interested in the pattern of behavior section. They're thinking of running an investigative piece on predatory vendors in the industry. And your name, Marcus, is at the top of their list." Marcus's face went from red to a ghostly white. He looked like he was going to be sick. Stephanie saw him falter and lashed out. "You're lying. You photoshopped that. You're a vindictive." "Am I, Stephanie?" I countered, my voice still level. "You're a brand consultant, right? You should know that when a story is this clean, with this much evidence, editors don't ignore it. You wanted to get Marcus engagement. Well, congratulations, you're about to go viral." Marcus just stared at me, his mouth open. The bully was gone. The artist had vanished. All that was left was a terrified, hollowed-out man. You wouldn't," he whispered. "I'm your brother." "You were my brother," I said, my voice finally hardening. "My brother wouldn't have posted those pictures. My brother wouldn't have aligned himself with her to humiliate me. You are a business, and I am just a very, very unsatisfied customer." I looked at Ethan, close the door. He did. We heard Stephanie start screaming in the hallway, a stream of furious, powerless insults. We just stood there, listening, until the sounds finally faded away toward the elevator. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for a week. It wasn't over, but the power had shifted. The ball was in my court. The next few days were a cascade. My Project Payback website, which I had carefully optimized, began to climb the search rankings. Anyone Googling Marcus' last name photography no longer saw his curated blog first. They saw my side-by-side evidence. The Knot and Wedding Wire didn't just suspend his account. After I forwarded them the Bridal Couture email, they permanently delisted him. His profiles vanished overnight. Marcus's reaction was predictable: desperation. He and Stephanie launched a pathetic counterattack. They started a new Instagram account, The Truth About Daphne, trying to paint me as an unhinged, psycho sister. They posted old, unflattering photos of me from high school, claiming I'd always been jealous and unstable. It was a fatal mistake. It was exactly what I was waiting for. Their smear campaign was so amateurish, so clearly vindictive, that it only served to validate my claims. I didn't even have to respond. The court of public opinion did it for me. The few comments they got were from strangers. Yikes, this is not a good look for a professional, or wow, so you did edit the photos, and now you're bullying her for calling you out? Classy. But the real escalation came from my investigation. The bridal couture piece was in the works, and the editor had put me in touch with her legal team and an investigative journalist. "We think this is bigger than just you," she'd said. "This smells like a pattern." She was right. My single case study opened a floodgate. The journalist, using my research as a starting point, found 3 more couples who had been targeted by Marcus and Stephanie in the last 6 months. The pattern was identical. Marcus would be booked. Stephanie would insert herself into the process, acting as an unsolicited stylist. She would find flaws with the bride, the venue, or the decor. The photos would be delivered late, and they would be substandard. When the couple complained, Marcus and Stephanie would demand an artistic editing fee, ranging from $2,000 to $5,000, to fix the photos to their liking. It was a systematic, predatory con. They weren't just being cruel, they were running a racket. They were targeting couples who were emotionally vulnerable, using their wedding memories as leverage. My case was the only one where they hadn't demanded money. They had done it for pure, malicious pleasure, which, in the eyes of the public, was even worse. The journalist compiled everything: the email threads from the 4 couples, the bank transfer receipts for the fees, and my own meticulously documented evidence. The second confrontation was not at my door. It was at our parents' house. My mother, horrified by the new revelations, had called an emergency family dinner. Marcus and Stephanie had apparently begged for the chance to explain themselves. When Ethan and I walked in, the atmosphere was thick enough to cut with a knife. My father sat at the head of the table, his face like stone. My mother was nervously setting out plates. And there they were, Marcus and Stephanie, sitting on the sofa, looking like they were waiting for an audience. Stephanie, for once, looked slightly nervous. Marcus just looked exhausted. "Daphne," my mother started. Marcus wanted to apologize. "Assent." Stephanie immediately shot him a look. "Right," Marcus mumbled, not looking at me. "Look, Daph, this whole thing it's gone too far, okay? I'm sorry you didn't like the photos, my artistic vision. Maybe it was a mistake." "A mistake?" I asked, stopping in the middle of the room. "You mean your vision or the blog post?" "All of it," he snapped, his frustration overriding his script. "This whole thing, you've ruined me, my accounts are gone, my bookings are canceled, all because you were sensitive." "So you're not sorry for doing it," Ethan said, his arms crossed. "You're just sorry you got caught." "What we want," Stephanie cut in, her composure returning, "is a truce. You take down that website, you call off those journalists. In return, he'll re-edit your photos, for free." The sheer audacity of it left me breathless. They were still trying to negotiate. They still thought they held power. "No," I said. "No," Stephanie's voice went high. "What do you mean, no? You've made your point, Daphne. Now you're just being vindictive. You're trying to destroy his life." "His life?" I said, my voice rising for the first time. "What about the lives of the other couples, the ones you extorted, the ones whose wedding memories you held for ransom?" Marcus paled. I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do." I pulled a thick manila envelope from my bag and tossed it onto the coffee table in front of them. "Let's talk about the Millers, the Changs, the Al-Jamal family, all of whom paid you an artistic editing fee after you delivered unusable photos." Marcus stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. Stephanie's eyes widened in genuine panic. This was the part she hadn't planned for. "I didn't. That was a misunderstanding," Marcus stammered. "Those were difficult clients." "They were victims, Marcus," I said, my voice dropping to a deadly quiet. And now, they're witnesses. I have their bank statements. I have your emails. The bridal couture article isn't just about predatory vendors anymore. The new title is The Wedding Grift: How One Photographer and His Partner Extorted 4 Couples. It's scheduled to post in 2 days. My father, who had been silent, finally spoke. Marcus. His voice was low and full of a deep, profound disappointment that hit my brother harder than any of my accusations. Is this true? Marcus looked from my father's face to mine. He saw the evidence. He saw my resolve. He saw that every lie had been uncovered. The spell was broken. He buried his face in his hands. It wasn't a sob of remorse. It was the choked, angry sound of a man who had been cornered. Stephanie, seeing her meal ticket and her muse crumbling, stood up. This is insane. You're all insane. I'm not going to sit here and be attacked. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house. For the first time, Marcus didn't follow her. He just sat there, shaking his head, finally, utterly defeated. The bridal couture article dropped on a Tuesday. It was a digital atom bomb. The journalist had pulled no punches. The title was The Wedding Grift: How Photographer Marcus last name and stylist Stephanie last name turned dreams into nightmares. It contained everything. My side-by-side photos, the humiliating blog post, and most damningly, the detailed, corroborated stories of the other 3 couples, complete with screenshots of the extortion-like emails and the demands for money. My professional analysis of his brand's reliance on curated platforms was quoted directly, framing his actions not just as cruel, but as a stupid, self-destructive business decision. The article was shared thousands of times within 24 hours. It was picked up by other, more mainstream news outlets. Local photographer accused of extortion, one headline blared. Brother of the bride humiliates sister in artistic blog post, read another. My Project Payback website was now the #1 search result for his name, his business, and even Stephanie's boutique. The climax, however, wasn't on the internet. It was at the annual City Bridal Expo, an event Marcus had paid thousands for months in advance to have a premium booth. It was, I knew, his last-ditch effort to save his career, a place where he could meet clients face-to-face, away from the digital firestorm. He hadn't counted on me being there. I wasn't there as a strategist. Ethan and I had been invited by one of the other victimized couples, the Millers, who were attending to look for a new photographer to redo their family portraits. We were walking through the crowded convention center when I saw it, his booth. It was large, beautifully decorated, and utterly empty. Marcus was standing in the middle of it, his suit rumpled, looking desperately at the couples walking past, all of whom gave his large, Marcus last name, photography, sign a wide berth. And then I saw Stephanie. She wasn't wit. Him, she was 20 feet away, laughing and talking with the owner of the most high-end floral design company in the city. She was dressed to the nines, positioning herself, as always, to be seen with the right people. She saw me, her eyes flickered to Marcus's empty booth, and she gave me a tiny, contemptuous smirk. She was already distancing herself. She was a rat leaving a sinking ship. At that moment, Marcus spotted me. His face went through a rapid series of emotions, shock, anger, and then a desperate, pathetic kind of pleading. He started walking toward me, his hands half raised. "Daphne, please, you have to tell them it's a lie, a misunderstanding. You can fix this. Tell them." Heads were turning. The murmur of the expo floor died down around us. "Tell them what, Marcus?" I asked, not moving. "Tell them you didn't edit my photos to look grotesque. Tell them you didn't take thousands of dollars from the Millers. Tell them that's not Stephanie, your partner in all this, abandoning you over there." I pointed. Marcus's head snapped around. He saw her. He saw her smile, her schmoozing, her complete and total abandonment of him. He saw her see him and then deliberately turn her back. That was the moment, the final, powerful realization. It wasn't me who had ruined him. It wasn't the internet. It was her. It was his choice to follow her, to feed his own ego, to betray his family. She told me it would work, he whispered, his voice cracking. She said it was high concept, she said. She said you were a nobody and it wouldn't matter. I'm not a nobody, Marcus, I said, my voice clear and carrying in the quiet. I'm your sister, and those people you stole from, they weren't difficult clients. They were people who trusted you. The Millers, a sweet couple in their late 20s, stepped forward. You took $2,000 from us, Marcus, Mrs. Miller said, her voice shaking but strong. You ruined our first anniversary photos. You told us we had no taste. People were openly staring now, phones out. A security guard was starting to move toward us. Marcus looked at the Millers. He looked at Stephanie's back. He looked at me. The full weight of his actions, the public humiliation, the financial ruin, the loss of his family, and the betrayal by his partner crashed down on him all at once. He didn't yell, he didn't make excuses, he just deflated. The arrogant artist was gone. I have to go, he stammered, and he turned, walking quickly, not running back to his empty booth. He started grabbing his sample albums, shoving them into a box, his hands shaking so badly he dropped most of them. He didn't look at anyone. He just packed his things, a man completely and publicly broken. Ethan put his arm around my waist. I didn't feel triumphant, I just felt done, it was over. As we turned to leave, I made eye contact with Stephanie one last time. Her smile was gone. Her face was ashen. The floral designer she'd been talking to was now staring at her, having clearly overheard. She, too, slowly turned her back on Stephanie. She was next, and she knew it. The downfall was total. Marcus declared bankruptcy within 2 months. The lawsuit, which the 4 couples, including us, filed as a class action, settled out of court. He had no money left, but the judgment was a public record, a permanent stain on his name. He lost his business, his condo, and the last of his reputation. I heard through my mother that he'd moved back into his old bedroom in their house. A 33-year-old man with nothing, not even his cameras, which he'd sold to pay the initial legal fees. Stephanie's demise was quieter but just as complete. Her boutique, already failing, closed its doors. The bridal couture article had made her toxic. No vendor would work with her. No client would hire her. Her family, embarrassed by the public scandal, reportedly cut her off. The last I heard, she had moved to a different state, her influencer career dead before it ever began. My parents were a different story. My father was stern and practical. He told me, "You did what was right, Daphne. It was hard, but it was just." My mother, however, struggled. She loved her son. It took months of therapy both for her and for us as a family to navigate the chasm. The healing wasn't linear. There were tearful phone calls and difficult silences. The resolution for me and Ethan, however, was beautiful. About 6 months after the expo, Ethan surprised me. He'd hired the photographer who had shot the Millers' new portraits. "We're doing this again," he said, holding up 2 new outfits. "Our memories, our way." We went to a beautiful botanical garden, just the 2 of us and the photographer. We laughed, we kissed, and we took the most stunning, honest, and joyful photos. When we got them back, I cried, this time for the right reasons. They were perfect. They were us. I did have one final interaction with Marcus. He sent me a letter. It was handwritten and the cursive was shaky. It wasn't full of excuses or blame, it was just sad. "Daphne," it began, "I know sorry is a word I don't deserve to use. I got lost. I wanted to be a big shot and I listened to someone who promised me I could be. Instead, I hurt the one person who always believed in me. I threw away my talent and my family for nothing. I look at those pictures, the real ones, and I see what a beautiful day it was, and I see that I was the only ugly thing there. I don't expect you to forgive me. Not now, maybe not ever. But I wanted you to know that I know. I finally know." I read the letter, folded it, and put it in a box. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an ending. My Project Payback website stayed up for a full year. I had added an update, linking to the articles and the outcome, framing it as a case study in professional ethics and the power of brand management. It became a minor legend in my industry. I was even asked to speak on a panel about crisis management and digital ethics. I used my skills not for revenge, but for justice. I'd protected future clients and exposed a predator. I had taken the worst day of my life and turned it into a testament to my strength. Ethan and I hung the new photos all over our apartment. They are a reminder that true beauty isn't about a perfect image. It's about honesty, resilience, and the unshakable love that helped me reclaim my own story.